All right, let's talk about Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar. What's going on, everybody? On this channel, we talk about things that are happening in the world of MMA and combat sports. My name's Drew, and today I want to talk about the fight that was just announced between Daniel Cormier and Brock Lesnar, happening sometime in the next 6 months. Today is the day after UFC 226, and they announced at the post-fight press conference that Daniel Cormier was in fact going to fight Brock Lesnar for the heavyweight title sometime after 6 months from now. And you know, that whole thing happened after DC won the belt. Brock Lesnar came in the octagon and they had their whole exchange and everything, and then all the speculation happened, but Dana White said, you know what, no, this fight is actually going to happen. Daniel Cormier says that he wants it. Brock Lesnar says that he wants it. It's good business for the UFC, and listen, the fans want to see it. I want to see it. I'm not a WWE fan at all. I wouldn't even really call myself a Daniel Cormier fan or a Brock Lesnar fan, but it's going to be a good fight, and my hope is that they'll put a pretty good undercard underneath it as well. And so, listen, it's a heavyweight championship fight, so I'm definitely going to watch it, and you know, I'm pretty intrigued about it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think you can ever count Brock Lesnar out of a fight. I think, all things considered, obviously, it seems like Daniel Cormier is going to win this fight. I mean, he's the more skilled mixed martial artist. He is the better boxer. He's the better wrestler. He has been training longer. He continues to keep up his training. All signs point towards Daniel Cormier winning this fight, but can you really ever count Brock Lesnar out of a fight? I mean, his sheer athleticism and size alone and strength make him eligible to win almost any fight. I don't think he's nearly as skilled as Daniel Cormier, but I can't count him out. I mean, think about it. Daniel Cormier's never really been much of a knockout finisher or somebody that finishes fights through striking. Yes, he did just knock out Stipe Miocic, which is incredible, and I'm not taking that away from him. But most of his fights, he either wins by decision or he has a lot of submission wins because he just tires a guy out, gets them on the ground, and then chokes them out. We saw that happen with Rumble. We saw that happen with Ozdemir. And it's odd to me because I don't necessarily understand how Daniel Cormier can win this fight. I mean, I obviously think that he is going to win this fight, but it's hard for me to figure out exactly out how. I don't necessarily see him choking Brock Lesnar. I could maybe see him submitting him, but I don't see it happening by leg lock like it happened with Frank Mir. I don't see it happening by armbar or triangle. So if it were to happen by submission, choke is the only one that makes sense, and yet for some reason that seems really unlikely to me just because of the size difference, but I mean, it definitely could happen. And yet I also don't really see Daniel Cormier finishing him through his strikes because that's not really his style. Now, Brock Lesnar does sort of have this, and I don't want to call it a weakness, but he got that shot to the body against Overeem that dropped him and ended up getting finished that way. We saw him against Cain Velasquez, not really absorb strikes really all that well. I mean, Brock Lesnar is not that kind of guy that just sort of grits down on the mouthpiece and fights through it and likes that kind of war. It seems like when Brock begins to take some damage that he just sort of panics a little bit, and that makes complete sense given that he doesn't really train all year round like most people, and he doesn't know what to do in that kind of situation. I mean, I've been there, even in just not stupid, but light, normal, meaning nothing sparring at the gym, that you just sort of panic if you don't know what to do, if you don't have the skills against a superior fighter. That's sort of what happens to Brock Lesnar. But I don't really see Daniel Cormier landing a big body shot that drops him and puts him out of the fight. And yet also a decision, a 5-round decision of Daniel Cormier grinding and taking down and beating Brock Lesnar, that also seems unlikely. And so in my mind, it seems pretty obvious that Daniel Cormier will win this fight, but yet I have no idea really how he's going to win this fight. And again, you really can't count Brock Lesnar out. Let's look at the fight against Randy Couture. Randy Couture was heavyweight and then went down to light heavyweight and then went back up to heavyweight, just like Daniel Cormier. Randy Couture was a really, really good wrestler as well. Like, he wasn't on Daniel Cormier's level, but Randy Couture was a really good wrestler. He's sort of one of the original wrestlers that revolutionized and evolved the ground and pound game of MMA. I mean, obviously Dan Severn and Tito Ortiz, but Randy Couture is one of those pioneers as well. And we saw what Brock Lesnar did to Randy. He was able to take him down and pound him out. Now, it's not my first time watching MMA. I know that Daniel Cormier is not Randy Couture, but it's worth noting that, I mean, Brock Lesnar isn't just a WWE entertainer. He is a collegiate wrestler with many state championships, and him and Daniel Cormier wrestled alongside each other at many tournaments. And so he is an athlete. He's a lifetime athlete, and he's an exceptional athlete at that. And it's hard for me to count him out of this fight. On top of that, you know, he is strong, obviously, and he does have a really good straight cross that I don't think is likely to land against Daniel Cormier. But if he did land it against Daniel Cormier, that could really change the pace of how things are going to go. I mean, we saw him do that to Heath Herring, and we saw him really brutalize Frank Mir as well. So it's possible that Brock Lesnar could do this. We saw him beat Mark Hunt pretty handily. You really can't count Brock Lesnar out of this fight. Absolutely, Daniel Cormier is the more skilled mixed martial artist. He is the superior champion in this regard, but there's a lot of ways that I could see Brock Lesnar sort of turning the tables and just using his size to an advantage. That size discrepancy is nothing to shake a stick at. Particularly the reach difference is going to be very significant. Now, we saw that Daniel Cormier does have some strategies on how to deal with that, which I think is going to be a pretty big factor in this fight. I mean, one of the biggest strengths that I think that Daniel Cormier has going for him is his training partner in Cain Velasquez, who actually beat Brock Lesnar in a dominating way, but also his coaching staff, and he trains nonstop. Brock Lesnar kind of trains 12 weeks every couple years for a fight. Like, I know that's maybe exaggerating, but he took that break, trained for one camp, fought Mark Hunt, has been gone. He'll train another camp, and I know he earned his blue belt, so he must have been doing some training in between. But he also lives in northern Saskatchewan, and there's nothing really there to train. No gyms there really to train at, and so he'd have to fly people in, and he'll do that for a camp, but he's not going to do that all year round like a George St. Pierre who just is constantly training, or a Daniel Cormier who is constantly training. And so there's a lot of intriguing things about this matchup. I'm really interested to continue to see how Daniel Cormier does at heavyweight. You know, he's been mentioning all day today that, you know, I'm 39 years old. And when you simply look at pictures of him, he looks different at 39 at heavyweight than he did even 5 years ago. And if you look at pictures of when he first went down to light heavyweight to his last couple fights, I mean, he is an aging fighter. And so that's something to note as well. But obviously he wants this fight. He wants that legacy of being one of the greatest of all time, and that'll motivate him to do really well in this fight. And it's obviously a good payday, but there's a lot of unknowns for me in this fight. As of right now, if I'm going to make a pick, I'm going to say Daniel Cormier by unanimous decision, because it's the only way that I could see him winning. Kind of similar to how he beat Anderson Silva, and that's what I said against Stipe as well. It's because it's his go-to. I don't see him having the power to stop Brock with a body shot. I certainly don't see him knocking him out, but anything's possible. That's what makes this sport so great. So right now I would pick Daniel Cormier by decision. You know, I normally wait to make these videos until I've listened to other analysts and podcasts before I've really formed an opinion on a fight. And I haven't done that this time because I wanted to just get this video out as soon as possible, because I've been thinking about it over the past day. You know, those people are experts. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert analyst. I'm a fan with an opinion and a camera, and I just like to make videos. And so there's a lot of unknowns for me, and I'm really interested to just get the conversation started as soon as possible about how do you think this fight's going to go? Do you think Brock Lesnar is going to win? If so, how do you think he wins? Do you think Daniel Cormier is going to win? If so, how do you think he wins? I'd love to get this conversation going as early as possible. This fight is like super far away. They haven't announced the date at all. We know that Brock Lesnar has to be in the USADA testing pool for at least 6 months before he can accept a fight. And Daniel Cormier has said at the end of March, I'm retiring. And so he turns 40 in March, and he's done after that. So it has to be before March 2019, but it could be any time between now and then. So I'm really interested in that. And also, you know, just as a last note, you do have that factor of we probably never actually seen Brock Lesnar clean in the octagon. He was probably on steroids for his fights in the past because there wasn't really stringent testing, and he tested positive obviously in his last fight. And so there's a part of me that's really interested to see what Brock Lesnar looks like completely clean, unless you think that he can sort of skirt the system and sort of fly under the radar. If it were me, honestly, I would just say, screw it. Like, we know what we're getting with Brock Lesnar, right? Like, we're under no illusions of who Brock Lesnar is. I mean, is the testing really necessary? I don't know. Nah, that's just a personal opinion on it. Anyway, let me know what you think about this fight in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. You give me some great feedback, and it's been a lot of fun to just interact with you guys. And so let me know what you think, and we'll talk about this fight for the next 6 months or so. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Fight the good fight, and we'll see you in the next video.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to watch this content. I'm just a fan with an opinion and a camera, but I love the sport of MMA. So if you want to see some more videos, you can take a look here on the right of this screen. And other than that, I will catch you in the next video.